Good morning, you blessed and beautiful people. Hold on one second. I'm hopping in. Oh, my camera's crooked. Sorry. There you go. Hi, how are you? Man, Shevitz. It's been one of those mornings. I need to start today off with a moment of gratitude, both genuine and ironic. As this show has grown, not just the morning show, but the afternoon show, relatively exponentially, and it's been a beautiful thing to watch. And I have increasingly, sought sort of the deeper taint spots, the taint warts of the internet to, I guess, saw off or whatever my job is. Anyways, some people, you lovely people, will bring things to my attention and say, hey, how about this? I would love to hear your take on this. And a lot of times it is great. And many times, quite frankly, we're simpatico. I'm already on it. And we already have something, queued up, or I'm already thinking about, I'm already preparing by not preparing. I see something, I'm like, people are going to want me to cover this. Therefore, I am not looking at it until we all look at it together. Sometimes, though, these things are not video, like YouTube videos or Rumble videos like I normally cover in the afternoon show. Sometimes they are Twitter threads. And occasionally, one of you lovely people will go, what about this Twitter thread? Or what about this thing? And I'll jump in and put my 2 cents in. And in this particular instance, that happened this morning, it's kind of, I would say it's par for the course. This is something I am used to at this point as being the primary response to this. Let me see if I can scroll down through this stuff and find the one earlier, because there was a lot going. There's a lot going on this morning, news-wise. A lot of like, how do we make this bad for Biden? The jobs report came out, and they're like, oh shit, it's great again. Yeah. Americans are taking the jobs that we used to blame were lost on immigrants, says every Fox News person. Honestly, I'm scrolling through this. There's so much stuff in this. It's hilarious. Okay, so let's see. Okay. I guess people picked up on me going after TYT yesterday. It breaks out of the other part of it. Okay, where is it? I've got to scroll down through here. So, here it is. So somebody suggested I look into this lady's thread, Heidi Moran, pronounced moron. I'm kidding. I don't have a bone to pick with this person. She seems to be at least put forward the illusion of being a progressive or a liberal or care about these issues. And here's the thing. Tactical arguments is where I sit as far as my fellow, travelers. And sometimes those tactical arguments are quite meaningful. Ask the Donner Party. Ask that group of people who were lost in the snow. I want to say it was Alaska or something, where maybe it was a British ship. Remember that fucked up story? Some of you may have heard it, where all these people were starving to death, and they left behind food and other stuff because they figured it was too heavy to carry, but they kept carrying this writing desk so they could continue to keep records. And they literally carried a big wooden desk. I got to find that story. These people like starving. I mean, it's sad and funny, but they had hypoxia, obviously, and they were losing their minds. And Oregon Trail, was that what it was? You have died of dysentery. But I'm sure there were some tactical arguments breaking out where someone probably from my, that would have been in my family line, I would have been post, said, hi guys, maybe we should drop the desk and carry the food, because the point is, and they beat me to death. They beat my ancestor to death. Luckily, the kids had the brains to stay home. So So tactical arguments can be life and death. However, the argument about getting there isn't the question. You're never questioning people's commitment to the destination. It's just the sort of idiocy of the planning. And I would show you the whole thread, but she blocked me as soon as I said this. But essentially, it started off with this whole, remember Biden saying he couldn't do anything, and now he's going to do this executive order? This is why pressure works. Like, okay, first of all, as soon as the Roe v. Wade leak came out, the White House issued a statement saying, we're going to look into everything we can possibly do. We're talking to White House lawyers. We're talking to constitutional experts. We're talking to cabinet members. We're talking to all of our everybody in the cabinet about where in their area we can do things to actually help. Not fantasy shit, not making stuff up that, oh, wouldn't it be awesome if, which without any regard for how it would collapse a bunch of other things. And we'll talk about Eli Mistal's take on it as well. Which, he's half there and half against there. And again, these are all tactical problems I have with these people. I'm sure they have decent hearts, but as my pinned tweet on my Twitter page says, it doesn't matter where if your heart is in the right place, if your head is up your ass. And that's where we find ourselves a lot of times. And the thing is, a lot of these real changes or real solutions take time to work through and go, yes, we can present this as a real possibility. This will work. We've talked to people. Okay, Biden is on right now. Let's see what is. I'll look over there and see what's being said. There we go. I'll see if it pops up and it's okay. Yeah. So this is him talking about what they can do in terms of. Hold on. Let me back this up because he just started. All right here. We'll take this. Believe me, this will be all over. Right-wingy. Let me put my headphones in so I can listen to it with you guys. This is about his executive order. Good name for Cenk's book is I Eat Possums. Quit it. All right. Yeah, here we go. This is the White House's YouTube page.
Good morning, everyone. Before I speak to the Supreme Court extreme decision overturning Roe, I want to comment on one piece of good news, economic good news today.
Mm-hmm.
Today, the Labor Department reported that we added 372,000 jobs last month. 372,000.
Well, by the way, we'll get to my response to some of the articles about the jobs report in a minute.
Here's why it's important. Our private sector has now recovered all of the jobs lost during the pandemic and added jobs on top of that. We have more Americans working today in the private sector than any day under my predecessor, more today than any time in American history. Today.
Yeah, just stick a pin in that. And that's with people removing themselves from the labor market in some cases because their partner, be it the whichever breadwinner is strongest, has been able to earn more at work while the other person stays home for the first time. That trend, however small the dip was, has actually reversed in the last year.
In the second
I'll turn it up a little bit for you guys.
Second quarter of this year, we created more jobs than any quarter under any of my predecessors in nearly 40 years before the pandemic. Think about that.
Yes.
At a time when our critics said the economy was too weak or having already added more jobs, we had already added more jobs my first year as president of any president in history, we still added more jobs in the past 3 months than any administration in nearly 40 years. Now look, I know times are tough. Prices are too high. Families are facing the cost of the living crunch. But today's economic news confirms the fact that my economic plan is moving this country in a better direction.
Right.
The unemployment rate is near a historic low of 3.6%. Private sector jobs are at a record high. Gas prices, still way too high, have fallen now 25 days in a row. And this week we saw the second low.
Again, these are things that take time. Here's the thing. If there was a switch in the president's office that could fix some of these things right away, can you imagine what that switch would be, in the wrong hands. Remember that anytime somebody goes, they could just write something and solve it. Just remember there should be some pacing in making sure that A, whatever you do sticks, and especially if it's protecting people, DACA would be a good example, where it can survive legal challenges instead of just, well, fuck that. And Trump did so many of those. People were like, they did it, but none of them stood.
Largest single-day decrease in gas prices in a decade.
Mm-hmm.
We still have a lot of work to do. I'm not suggesting there's a lot more work to do, but I am suggesting we're making significant progress. The program is working. Now, with the Vice President, Secretary Becerra, and Deputy Attorney General Monaco, I want to talk about an executive order I'm signing to protect reproductive rights of women. In the aftermath of the Supreme Court's terrible, extreme, and I think so totally wrong-headed decision to overturn Roe v. Wade. In both formalized actions I announced right after the decision, as well as adding new measures today. Let's be clear about...
By the way, that cue back into the thing I told you about in the Twitter feed that I was getting in this, back and forth about with the Fauxgressive, who was like, "Why we voted last time? We did our job. Now you do your job." Like that, all these people who didn't vote in 2016 are like, "Fix this now," that business. And he said he couldn't do anything. Like 2 weeks ago, he said he couldn't do anything. You're like, I mean, it's just stupid. Like as soon as it came out, they're like, "We're looking into every possible way we can do this. Only the Congress can codify Roe as law, but we'll do everything we can in the interim. But we don't have the votes to change things." And I don't mean this Mansion cinema bullshit. They would vote for it. They just don't want to overrule they don't want to get rid of the filibuster to do it because they don't trust that we're going to win this fall. If that's a worry point.
Something from the very start. This was not a decision driven by the Constitution. Let me say it again. This was not a decision driven by the Constitution. And despite what those justices in the majority said, this was not a decision driven by history. You've all probably had a chance to read the decisions and the dissent. The majority rattles off laws from the 19th century to support the idea that Roe was a historic anomaly because states outlawed abortion in the 1880s toward the end.
Yes, at a time, by the way, when amputation was done with rusty butter knives in fields.
But that's just wrong. The truth is, today's Supreme Court majority.
I was there. I'm sorry. He's an old dude. I think that's a positive ageism joke, I think.
That is playing fast and loose with the facts. Even 150 years ago, the common law and many state laws did not criminalize abortion early in pregnancy, which is very similar to the viability line drawn by Roe. But the Dobbs majority ignores that fact. And the Dobbs majority ignores that many laws are enacted to protect women at the time when they were dying from unsafe abortions. This is the horrific reality that Roe sought to end. Mm-hmm. The practice of medicine should not be frozen in the 19th century. So what happened? The dissenting opinion says as clear as you can possibly say it. And here's the quote. "Neither law nor facts nor attitudes have provided any new reason to reach a different result than Roe and Casey did. And all that's changed is this court," end of quote. Mm-hmm. All that's changed is this court. That wasn't about the Constitution or the law. It was about a deep, long-seating antipathy toward Roe and the broader right to privacy. Mm-hmm. As the justices wrote in their dissent, and I quote, "The majority has overruled Roe and Casey for one and only one reason, because it has always despised them, and now it has the votes to discard them," end of quote. So what we're witnessing wasn't a constitutional judgment. It was an exercise in raw political power. Uh-huh. On the day the Dobbs decision came down, I immediately announced what I would do. But I also made it clear, based on the reasoning of the court, there is no constitutional right to choose. The only way to fulfill and restore that right for women in this country is by voting, by exercising the power at the ballot box.
Right, because we have 48 Democratic senators, 48, including Manchin and Sinema. Congratulations, Democrats. We have elected the minority in the Senate. We have a majority voting ability because we have 2 independents and her. And that only applies to things that are related to the budget, things the government pays for and things the government taxes. That's it. Well, and Supreme Court justices. But then if we cared about those, we would have voted in 2016, now wouldn't we?
Explain. We need 2 additional pro-choice senators and a pro-choice House to codify Roe as federal law. Your vote can make that a reality.
That's right.
I know it's frustrating, and it made a lot of people very angry, but the truth is this.
The truth is this. You stayed the fuck home in 2016, and you let that orange shitgibbon get in there and fuck up the whole thing when he told you he would punish women for abortions. And you're like, her voice bothers me, though. But her emails. Oh, she was mean to Bernie. Fucking hell. 75,000 votes in 3 states gave him the Electoral College. Sorry, I'm now, you know how like Key and Peele did Obama's anger translator?
And it's not just me saying it. It's what the court said. When you read the decision the court has made clear, it will not protect the rights of women. Period. Period. After having made a decision based on a reading of a document that was frozen in time in the 1860s, when women didn't even have the right to vote, the court now practically dares the women of America to go to the ballot box and restore the very rights they've just taken away. One of the most extraordinary parts of the decision, in my view, is the majority writes, and I quote, women, it's a quote now from the majority, women are not without electoral or political power. It is noteworthy that
they were in the 1860s, you dumb son of a... I'm sorry.
The percentage of...
seriously, the fact that Thomas and Kavanaugh had the nerve.
Women who registered to vote and cast a ballot is consistently higher than the percentage of the men who do so. End of quote.
So women voted for this. Women wanted Roe overturned. That's what they think. Son of a bitch.
Repeat the line. Women are not without electoral and or political, or maybe precise, not and or political power. That's another way of saying that you, the women of America, can determine the outcome of this issue. I don't think the court, or for that matter...
And Kelly, if you voted in 2016, I am not yelling at you. I'm yelling at the ones who didn't. You should feel no shame if you did everything you could in both elections. None whatsoever. But, you know, and that's why I use the phrase Fauxgressive a lot. I will sometimes be roughshod and use the term progressives when I'm directing, you know, my ire at people who regard themselves as such in direction. But understand that fundamental to my criticism about this is people who allege to believe what you do, but do not take action to mitigate the most damage and make the most progress actually available to them in reality. And the cavalier nature with which they piss that opportunity away in the face of the danger that it can cause to women and minorities. Fuck those people. Kelly, you're not one of them. There's a very different distinction. And if you are in my chat room and you voted for Trump, or you didn't vote for, you left President blank, or you wrote in Mickey Mouse or some shit, then you should feel vote shamed right now. And that shame should inform your behavior going forward. You fucked up, own it. It doesn't mean you're a waste of flesh. It means you've got to re-examine your choices as an adult human being who, at least in public and online, pretends to give a fuck about women. Is that clear enough? Is that clear? Anybody who voted for Hillary in 2016, or and even if you were holding your nose to do it, even more so. As a matter of fact, I'm even more proud of you if you were like, fuck that woman, and you still did it. Good for you. That shows you got nothing to be ashamed of. You did everything you could. It's the ones that didn't, and there were enough of them that it was a significant impact on the Electoral College, and even the fact that she won the popular vote only by 3 million has allowed them to go, there's 11 million illegals in this country. Did anybody come to her rescue in that crowd about that? No. So that's the point. That's what I'm talking about. Right? You get me? Okay, good.
Republicans who for decades have pushed the extreme agenda have a clue about the power of American women. But they're about to find out, in my view.
Oh, look out. He's calling you out, ladies. Well, they're calling you out. He's going, I think you've had it. Oh, you.
It's my hope and strong belief that women will, in fact, turn out in record numbers to reclaim the rights that have taken from them by the court. And let me be clear. While I wish it had not come to this, this is the fastest route available. I'm just stating a basic fundamental notion. The fastest way to restore Roe is to pass a national law codifying Roe, which I will sign immediately upon its passage at my desk.
Right. Period. End of story. No question. You get it? They pass it. He signs it. Every Democrat in the Senate, including Manchin and Sinema, will vote for that bill. They just, and by the way, a bunch of Republicans, quite frankly, would too if they weren't afraid of their base, but they won't show up. The only hope you have is that you can override that vote. We need two more. We need the votes. And if you don't have the votes, how can you say, well, this is the will of the people? This is what the people want. If you're not going to show up because you're angry, doesn't that mean that to some degree you don't give a fuck about how the rules apply to women at all?
And we can't wait. Extreme Republican governors, extreme Republican state legislators, and Republican extremists in the Congress overall, all of them have not only fought to take away our rights, but they're now determined to go as far as they can. Now, the most extreme Republican governors and state legislators have taken the court's decision as a green light to impose some of the harshest and most restrictive laws seen in this country in a long time. These are the laws that not only put women's lives at risk, these are the laws that will cost lives. What we're witnessing is a giant step backwards in much of our country. Already the bans are in effect in 13 states. 12 additional states are likely to ban choice in the coming weeks. And in a number of these states, the laws are so extreme, they've raised the threat of criminal penalties for doctors and healthcare providers. They're so extreme that many don't allow for exceptions, even for rape or incest. Let me say that again. Some of the states don't allow for exceptions for rape or incest. This isn't some imagined horror.
Again, also, for the record, the rape or incest ones, when you're talking about the pre-medical forms of abortion, for example, the right wing will have you believe that this is just that interrupting in the first month or 6 weeks even of a pregnancy is in some way impossible, which we now know that with medicated abortions you can I think something in the order of 87 to 90% of abortions in the country are medication-based abortions. By limiting the ability for women who've been raped or victims of incest from having that kind of an abortion in the first 6 weeks, simply by limiting the ability to get access to those medications. First of all, fuck the entire concept of Republicans and freedom and you make your own choices, because this isn't even, we're not talking about their bullshit about you can abort a baby after it's born. Yeah, that's called a shooting. And that's what you guys seem to be okay with all the time. But in the first 6 weeks, 8 weeks, even 10 weeks of a pregnancy, which again was well within the rules of Roe previous, the medication-based abortions are all medical. Medication-based abortions are the primary way that this happens now. And limiting someone's ability to get access to those things, first of all, is wrongheaded and awful and all those things. But it's predicated on this idea that this rape victim or this incest victim is midway through their pregnancy completely showing and just goes, ew, I don't want to do this anymore, which is just, it's a grotesque view of women in the first place. But even on top of that, Plan B, the noted morning after pill, which is available in most pharmacies and in most drugstores now. First of all, it's flying off the shelves. It's a little ridiculous because there's going to be a subtle black market for it in all of these states because they're going to try and go for that next. And that's that prevents pregnancy from occurring. That's a form of contraception. You do that, and all contraception, of course, besides, I suppose, condoms, are therefore illegal.
It's already happening. Just last week.
Do we have a ivermectin person in there? Rear entry says no. I do my research. Yeah, that's what the QAnon people say. By the way, trolls show up sometimes in our chat room and stuff, and they're welcome. Thank you for being here. You help us expand out into the internet in a way that regular viewers who actually like the content can't. And secondarily, the absorption of your time is particularly special and sweet because we want to be here. And the idea that I'm stealing your eyeballs for any amount of time, and time is the one thing that you never get back in your life. It would be wrong of me to not tell you from the heart that I appreciate the use of your time. No refunds. Okay.
Week was reported that a 10-year-old girl was a rape victim in Ohio. 10 years old. And she was forced to have to travel out of the state to Indiana to seek to terminate the presidency and maybe save her life. That's last part is my judgment. 10 years old. 10 years old, raped, 6 weeks pregnant, already traumatized, was forced to travel to another state. Imagine being that little girl. I'm serious, just imagine being that little girl, 10 years old.
Honestly, half the Republicans watching this got excited for a second.
Does anyone believe that it's Ohio's majority view that should not be able to be dealt with? Or in any other state in the nation? A 10-year-old girl should be forced to give birth to a rapist's child?
Also, by the way, Ohio and a lot of these red states have horrible laws about prosecuting rapists, putting them in jail, and giving them paternal rights in some cases.
I can tell you what I don't. I can't think of anything that's much more extreme. The court's decision has already been received by Republicans in Congress as a green light to go further and pass a national ban. A national ban. Remember what they're saying? They're saying there's no right to privacy, so therefore it's not protected by the Constitution. So it's left up to the states and the Congress what they want to do. And now my Republican friends are talking about getting the Congress to pass a national ban.
Yes, the Republican Broodmare Act of 2024.
Positions that they're taking in some of these states. That will mean the right to choose.
Also, since we have a couple of Q people in the chat room, you do recognize that it is less of a burden for the federal government to insist that you keep an RFID chip in your spine than it is for you to carry a baby to term. And therefore, this law and the lack of the right to privacy and the ability for the government to decide what can be and can't be in your body at any given time will guarantee that you will eventually lead to all us being chipped with DARPA chips. I'm just saying, it's your fault.
Will be illegal nationwide if, in fact, they succeed. Let me tell you something. As long as I'm president, it won't happen, because I'll veto it. So the choice is clear. If you want to change the circumstances for women and even little girls in this country, please go out and vote. When tens of millions of women vote this year, they won't be alone. Millions and millions of men will be taking up the fight alongside them to restore the right.
Damn straight.
Right to choose, and the broader right to privacy in this nation, which they denied existed.
Right. That's the other thing. Where's all the Republicans in the vaccination argument about you even asking me if I'm vaccinated is a violation of my HIPAA rights? Not anymore, fucko.
And the challenge from the court to the American women and men. This is a nation. The challenge is go out and vote. Well, for God's sake, there's an election in November. Vote, 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 vote. Consider the challenge accepted, court. But in the meantime, I'm signing this important executive order. I'm asking the Justice Department that, much like they did in the civil rights era, to do something, do everything in their power to protect these women seeking to invoke their rights. In states where clinics are still open, to protect them from intimidation, to protect the right of women to travel from state that prohibits seeking the medical attention that she needs to a state to provide that care. Protect the woman's right to FDA-approved, the Federal Drug Administration-approved medication that's been available for over 20 years. The executive order provides safeguards to access care. A patient comes into an emergency room in any state in the union. She's expressing and experiencing life-threatening miscarriage. But the doctor is going to be so concerned about being criminalized for treating her, they delay treatment to call the hospital lawyer who is concerned the hospital will be penalized if the doctor provides the life-saving care. It's outrageous. I don't care what your position is. It's outrageous. And it's dangerous. That's why this executive order directs the Department of Health and Human Services, HHS, to ensure all patients, including pregnant women and girls, experiencing pregnancy loss, get emergency care they need under federal law, and the doctors have the clear guidance on their own responsibilities and protections, no matter what state they're in. The executive order protects access to contraceptions that I'm about to sign. Justice Thomas himself said that under the reasoning of this decision, this is what Justice Thomas said in his concurring opinion, that the court should reconsider the constitutional right to contraception, to use contraception, even among married couples. And what century are they in?
Also, by the way, he tacked onto that not just gay marriage, which he also wants to get rid of, but same-sex relationships. And when he means that, he's talking about sodomy laws, but he's also talking about the ability to fire someone because they're gay or lesbian or transgender or what have you, whether it affects their work or not, whether that, you even found out because of behavior at work. We're not talking about a Boris Johnson moment. It's stunning. And they're just like, yeah, and that, and contraception in general. Yeah.
There used to be a case called Connecticut versus Griswold, which was declared unconstitutional in the late 60s. It said a married couple in the privacy of their bedroom could not decide to use contraception.
In America, in the United States, freedom country. And they're like, well, yeah, I mean, you have to understand, when we say freedom, it's got a little TM next to it. We don't actually should be able to decide when and if you have a kid. Sex is a disgusting, dirty business, if you're doing it right, that should always result in the production of a child. And if it doesn't, town floggings, I think, right? Town, we all agree, town floggings? Okay.
Right now.
Thank you, Joe, for the super chat. By the way, you're watching HAL Sparks Mornings Mega Worldwide. If you want to support the show or any of that kind of stuff, there's a Venmo right there. You can super chat, which is a great way of doing it. Once we get 666 people in the chat room, it's oftentimes people give a 666 chat to help us buy 666 Fifth Avenue. And then, of course, if you're on Facebook, you can use stars. It's a lovely way to support the show. And, of course, Twitch, just by being here and subscribing. Even the trolls are welcome to subscribe. They really can't help themselves.
In all 50 states in the District of Columbia, the Affordable Care Act guarantees insurance coverage for women's health services, including free birth control. The executive order directs HHS to identify ways to expand access to reproductive health services, like IUDs, birth control pills, emergency contraception. And equally important, this executive order protects patient privacy and access to information. which, looking at the press assembled before me, probably know more about it than I do. I'm not a tech guy. I'm learning. But right now, when you use a search engine or the app on your phone, companies collect your data. They sell it to other companies, or they even share it with law enforcement. There's an increasing concern that extremist governors and others will try to get that data off of your phone, which is out there in the ether, to find what you're seeking, where you're going, and what you're doing with regard to your health care.
Hey, but that's not fair. Obviously, they will stop there. Obviously, this is just when, it's not like they're going to become the draconian authoritarian psychopaths that Alex Jones has always warned us that people like Biden want to be. They just want that data. All they want to do is geolocate your phone in your neighborhood when you're trying to vote, and then they want to trace you whenever you go to and from the doctor for an appointment. Look, stop acting like this is 1984, guys. You're overreacting.
Talk about no privacy. No privacy in the Constitution. There's no privacy, period. This executive order asks the FTC to crack down on data brokers that sell private information to extreme groups, or in my view, sell private information to anybody. Mm-hmm. It provides private health information. It protects private health information in states with extreme laws. And the executive order.
Well, it also protects them in the states that don't have extreme laws, just not necessary, because those states aren't run by people who want to track your medical records and your behavior with your doctor. Again, pin this like up there right next to the unmasking argument during the early months of the Trump campaign, that the FBI was unmasking people, even though A, that's a standard practice, and B, if you call a drug dealer 35 times, eventually they're going to go, I don't think this is a wrong number. I don't think this is a misdial. The 35th time, definitely not a misdial. Who the fuck is that? And when they go to that, which, and by the way, they go through a legal process to do, they're bypassing that entirely. They're shitting on big tech. Remember, the Republicans are telling you nonstop, big tech is the enemy. They're aligned with the Democrats and big tech is the enemy. P.S. They are buying your medical data from big tech.
Order strengthens coordination at a federal level. It establishes a task force led by the White House Department and the Department of Human Services, focused specifically on using every federal tool available to protect access to reproductive health care. Let me close with this. The court and its allies are committed to moving America backwards with fewer rights, less autonomy, and politicians invading their most personal decisions. Remember the reason of this.
At Dragon X Flyers saying 2,000 Mules proved they buy your data. Luckily, though, 2,000 Mules also proved that they don't know what to do with it. You know what I mean? That was kind of funny. It's creepy as shit, though, that they can just track your movements and make assumptions about your behavior anywhere you either stopped or drove by in the course of weeks of your life. And by the way, they want to jail people on that as evidence. It's not going to work, thank God, because reality bumps up against this bullshit all the time. But they can torture the shit out of women who've gone through a horrible experience, especially if they're dealing with an ectopic pregnancy, or they've got fertility issues and they've been trying to get pregnant and they have a miscarriage and they're like, I don't think she really had a miscarriage. I think, and then they want to bring somebody, Texas is going to have a trial, or one of these assholes is going to bring a trial against some woman who had a miscarriage while she was trying to get pregnant. And then they're going to, one of the arguments you will see pop up is that she's got all these fertilized eggs and those are live. She should be responsible for carrying all 60 of them or whatever viable embryos they had created during the, her trying to get pregnant. She should have to carry those all to term. There should be, I don't know where the test tube baby farms are going to start up, whether it'll be Texas or Oklahoma. We'll see.
Decision has an impact much beyond Roe. and the right to privacy generally. Marriage equality, contraception, and so much more is at risk. This decision affects everyone, unrelated to choice, beyond choice. We cannot allow an out-of-control Supreme Court working in conjunction with extremist elements of the Republican Party to take away freedoms.
And Ginny Thomas. I mean, she's not technically in the party. She's just kind of like a weird, psychotic barnacle.
And our personal autonomy. The choice we face as a nation between the mainstream and the extreme.
Be well, Kim.
Between moving forward and moving backwards. Between allowing politicians to enter the most personal parts of our lives and protecting the right of privacy. Yes. Yes. Embedded in our Constitution. This is a choice. This is a moment. The moment. The moment to restore the rights that have been taken away from us. And the moment to protect our nation from the extremist agenda that is antithetical to everything we believe as Americans. Now I'm going to sign this executive order.
But you can't do that because, women, if given the choice, will always choose evil. Hello, Apple. Who bid it first? Huh? Okay, who got us into this? We would all be in Eden right now. But chicks, am I right? Who has more power, the president or the Supreme Court? Will this executive order also reverse what the Supreme? It will not reverse what the Supreme Court did. It will hold off some of the more egregious stuff until a codification can happen. By the way, the Supreme Court does this, especially the conservative Supreme Court does this all the time, and this has been their strategy for the last few years because the general public often bats these difficult issues. They become a political football. So when a lot of them are won, and these rights are won in the court, like marriage equality, for example. And, as the society moves towards acceptance and all that kind of stuff, there's like it gets over the hump where the majority of people accept it, but it's not quite to the point where it's got full acceptance because there's still the wait and see crowd. And the wait and see crowd, the mix of those two people is this juncture of, and it usually takes years. And in the case of marriage equality, it was shorter than most, but a definite part of it. This goes to women's right to choose, the Civil Rights Act, and the Civil Rights era in particular. These big changes, there becomes a tipping point where most of it is handled either, in a legal situation where they have to, Loving v. Virginia or those kind of things. And that tips up the actual legislation after the fact, because the legal case creates that brings along the wait and see crowd, right? So the codification of marriage equality, for example, in law, in a lot of people's minds, up until Clarence Thomas said what he said, was kind of as safe as Roe in that regard, because the vast majority of people are for it. As a test case goes, it did not destroy heterosexual marriage in any way. And just go watch Charmageddon. You can see my whole opinion on that as it unfolded. But there's this point where the rest of the public hasn't come on board, but there is a crucial aspect of the circumstance that the people whose rights are being, litigated reach where the court recognizes that there's a remedy not available to them in any present course for at least a period of time, and therefore rules in their favor to, that they have the right to give it a try, as it were. And then people eventually come on board. Then the rest of the people, like most people, are there on marriage equality. It's still touchy in enough places, or it's considered settled by a lot of people, that you don't have to put forward a bill to codify it, because it just, opens old wounds and makes it a difficult thing. And politically, it's not something that's, it's kind of handled. And it sits there for a long time. People just take it for granted. And a lot of Democrats over the years have not felt comfortable or safe in their vote voting on a lot of these issues are putting these things forward, even though they've done it multiple times, really going out on a limb over this, like sink or swim, arm twisting kind of stuff, because the voter base has shrugged it off as handled. They've gone back to, I don't know, next time I might try. I don't know if I don't like her. I don't know if they haven't done enough in this one particular area for me, and this is what I care about. That's so because the Democrats are kind of always on their heels with their voters. The Republicans can basically, they just salivate at the idea of using these issues, or even the fight coming up, because they know they can tip some of those the not quite there yet crowd back in their direction. They can count on it, and they can count on simply by having the Democratic politician running in these kind of purple-ish districts, or even lean blue or even lean red, where they might actually have a shot. They know that by making them make definitive statements on the fact, they will either have to be open to a broader consensus idea on whatever that law is, whatever that rule is, to make sure that they bring in as many people without eliminating as many people as possible, so that they can be the one that gets in there that actually moves this thing forward. But they know that by not being purist in their language, increasingly now and over the last 10 years, that they will knock away a certain number of their voters by drawing this issue out. So there tends to be a like all quiet on the Western Front strategy.
Second order is protecting access to reproductive health care services.
Mr. President, what does
She needs to keep that.
Prime Minister Abe last night say about the security situation in Japan? And can you give us an
They're asking him about Shinzo Abe. For those of you that woke up and weren't following this or didn't know it last night, Shinzo Abe, the former prime minister of Japan, was shot and killed by a dude with a homemade electrically fired gun, like a nerd shotgun. Just bizarre. The guy is spun, it seems. He says they've got limited statements about what was coming out. Abe had passed away in the night. They tried to resuscitate him. They used 100 liters of blood trying to keep him alive, and he died. Yeah, we would call that a ghost gun in the States. Absolutely. The guy said he was there to kill a religious leader who was speaking, but he was fed up with Abe, so he shot him. It's a mix of, nobody quite knows exactly what his deal was. But he came there specifically to kill this religious guy who was speaking. And he didn't like Abe either, or decided he had to move on something right away. And Abe spoke earlier and shot him. And he died last night, this morning.
update on your thinking about lifting China tariffs, please?
Let me, I tried to put a call in to the present Prime Minister, and he was very late there at night. I'll be talking there in the morning. I'm going to be stopping to sign the condolence book at the Japanese embassy on the way to the CIA. This hasn't happened in Japan in decades and decades. I'm told all the way back to the late 30s, the mid 30s. And it's a homemade weapon. I've only seen a photograph of it. The Justice Department is going to be going in and giving me more detail later as they find out the detail. But the fact is that one thing did get my attention, that this is the first use of a weapon to murder someone in Japan. And I think we have thus far 3,000, I won't hold me to the number, 688, between 3,000 and 4,000 cases. They have one. And so, but we're going to learn more about as time goes on about motive, about the whole. But Japan, Fumio, the present prime minister, is a very solid guy. Japan is a very, very stable ally, and I do not believe it's likely to have, but I don't know yet, likely to have any profound destabilizing impact on Japanese security or Japanese solidarity. Thank you also very much.
Can I ask you about privacy?
And China tariffs as well, sir. Can you just give us your thoughts on lifting China tariffs?
I haven't made that decision. Going through one.
Would you recommend women stop using apps that track their health?
Would you recommend people stop using apps that track their health? No. You shouldn't have to dial back your use of things that, especially apps that track your health, like that modern institution, that element of being able to introduce stuff like that and have that kind of stuff on your phone, on your watch, the cardiac and the oxygen meters and that kind of stuff is an incredible tool, not just for people's individual health, but also for the medical community as far as data. You can get you can sign up on all these things to give your data blindly to a study based on just your age and your sex, and then they can track all those measurements without it being attached to you as a person, which is the privacy part of it. Your data itself is not a factor of privacy until it's attached to you, because your privacy is your relationship to that data. And a lot of these apps track you blindly, or you can give them permission to track you blindly. The difference is the attack on attaching your data to you for a specific legal purpose, to control your behavior. A behavior, by the way, that is found medically safe by the FDA and is legal in a multitude of states, period. It is a right that other states allow. This is, imagine, if you will, if John Boehner and his ilk had presented an idea that there's an app for you to buy, medical marijuana when it was first coming out, or even recreational marijuana in states that make it legal. But states where it is illegal wanted to buy that app information and go, oh, this person lives here, but they regularly go to California to buy pot. Therefore, we would like to charge them based on that behavior because it's illegal in our state. Like, get the fuck out of here. Just madness. Oh, do we have a level 4 hype train? Hype train. Loving that stuff. It's so good. Thank you guys so much. Support the show, like and subscribe. Give a thumbs up if you can. If you have Amazon Prime, it doesn't cost you a dime. Good morning. It's HAL Sparks Mornings, Mega Worldwide, where straight out of the gate, I got attacked for stating facts. It's a terrible life. I feel like Greg Kelly some days. All you're doing is saying your truth, and yet the whole world is against you. Other bus passengers. No, I'm just kidding. Level 5 hype train. Right on. Thank you guys so much. Thanks for buying the ad time. Also, merch, all that kind of stuff. I'm always terrible at pushing this stuff, and then I look at my my insights about once every 3 months, and I'm like, oh, I should remind people that this is a living. Me on the bus. I've ridden buses in my life, and I'm big on public transportation when I'm in a city that has good stuff. New York, Seattle, let's see, where's Portland even? Yeah, for real. Definitely San Francisco. Trolley cars, I mean, it's almost like a must. I actually think that insofar as public transportation, cities should go weird with it. Make it part of the city, theme the, like there's something about a Chicago L train that is Chicago. Just has this kind of feel to it. You know what I mean? It just has it looks different than a New York subway car. And certainly San Francisco trolley cars are the extreme example of this. I actually think that, some cities will make it the big blue bus or the big green bus, those kind of things. But making it personal to the city is one of the ways, A, to make people take better care of it who live in the city, and also to make tourists and people feel more welcome to use it amongst everybody else. Yeah, the bums. All right. Simmer. Yes. Remember when pop? Yes, Rose. Pop used to be illegal. That's right. All right. So, where's your Patreon symbol? Debbie, does it not have one in the thing? Oh, I don't know. Ask Mark. He will send you yours. Mark, talk to Debbie Dolan. I think she's trying to get her patch. Mark is in charge of sending them out now. Bless his beautiful, kind, loving heart. Mark, if I could hug you right now, I would. Again. Thank you, thank you, thank you. As Joe Biden says, thank you, thank you, thank you. Yeah, thank you, thank you, thank you. Not, I would like to thank you, which is me patting myself on the back for being a grateful person. Isn't that nice? I thank people. You should appreciate me. But just fucking saying it. Excellent. Shadow Woman got hers. Yay. Yes, he's the patch captain. This is true. We may run out again, and I have to get more. You can at least smell his hair. Yeah, okay. Yay. If you become a patron, patreon.com/HalSparks, you can we'll get you a patch. And that patch is like a token until I get promise coins made that will get you and a friend into a show of mine for free. It doesn't apply to sexy liberal shows, and only applies in limited amounts to the Nerd Halen shows, because that's not just about me. I wouldn't give away the part of the ticket sales that goes to other people on my behalf. I just can't do that. And it's very complicated getting some sort of discount through the sexy liberal thing. Just, I'm amazed that the building doesn't fall in on us sometimes. But anyways, at my own shows, that's a regular thing at any level, and the higher level, the better, obviously. But there you go. So that's there. It's my pleasure. And by the way, we also, when I've just re-signed up with Flappers to do my monthly regular stand-up show, which is 100% improvised, an hour of stand-up, and I just kind of go up there and riff. And that I stream that for patrons as well, no matter where you are in the country or the world. That goes just for you. So you get yourself a free comedy show, even if you don't like to leave the house. Phil Stone is saying, isn't there a monorail in Las Vegas? Yes, but it goes to like 2 buildings. It's a little, the one at Disneyland is longer. I'm serious. It's on one side of the street. Yes, we are coming to DC. So Sexy Liberal just announced September 10th. September 10th, Washington, DC. Tickets at sexyliberal.com. That was just announced. I'm going to be on Steph's show on Monday morning before the Monday show to talk about it and so for the 8 o'clock hour, the entirety of the 8 o'clock hour. There you go. Yeah. Not worth the price of the ticket in Vegas. Exactly. Yeah, it's so weird, Mark. Thank you so much, Gail, for being a second-year Patreon. I mean, it's been beautiful watching this show grow over time, and I will confess to being, I'm at my most amateurish when it comes to the financial aspect of streaming. Like, this is getting on and yapping for hours. I mean, if you watched me fill in for Joan Esposito yesterday, they asked me with relatively short notice to fill in for her on that show, and I think I did a solid 3 hours yakking, and still met most of my like ad breaks in the show. So that did okay. That part I got down. The rest of it is coming slowly. I'm working on it. There you go. Yep, we're at 37,000, almost like halfway to 38,000. We'll get there. We'll get that $100,000 button, or the 100,000 like or subscribe button. Damn it! Come on. He's a yapper. Oh, honey, we've got a yapper. Now, the Shinzo Abe news is shocking and horrifying, and also points to the future danger of ghost guns in the country. Get used to that idea as a regular aspect of crazy with some people. not necessarily in the United States, because why would you make something you could buy off the rack? None of these like crazy shooters we have in the States are running around in hand-sewn clothing, if you get my drift. Everything is readily available. That said, and then of course the job news came out this morning and is making everybody mad, which I think is hilarious. So like, this is so funny. I pointed this out. This sums it up more than anything. This is Joe Biden's life right now. This is it. And it's just chef's kiss. Look at this headline. U.S. sees big job gains in June, fueling inflation worries. And there's still a "we're hiring" sign. There's still hiring. That means they don't have enough people to cover the number of people coming in to buy shit from the people that they have. Fucking hell. U.S. sees big job gains in June, fueling inflation war. By the way, it says worries. Great job, Nordop app of the AP or AFP. Worries. Inflation worries. I hope you know this means worries. All right. Shit. I mean, if that doesn't fucking sum the whole thing up, I'm very worried. It's hard to even mistype that. It's one of the words that like will get automatically corrected. You ever try to make an intentional misspelling? When I was when I do my like Trump emoji ones back in the day, where I would use the hands gestures all the time because he was always doing his accordion hands. So I would kind of mix in those with those, and then I would spell stuff the way he speaks. That was fucking work. It's like trying to write an emoji as bad as he spoke. So yeah, think about war as usual. You think that's what it is? Oh God, it's just so fucking funny, and just pitiful. That, I mean, and a ton of it, like all of the stories this morning. Here's another one. This is the article that I think really stuck out when it came to Biden signing this executive order, and this look at how this story is told. Facing pressure, Biden to sign order on abortion access. All right. First of all, the pressure part of it meant nothing on the executive order. All they were doing since this thing leaked was figuring out shit they could do and developing the executive order so that whatever they wrote would hold. And it takes time to do that. And you had to wait until the actual thing came out before you could actually redraft that. So that took a couple more weeks. They did their work in the proper amount of time, focusing on what they could solve and how they could solve it for real, not these fantasy fart air arguments that some folks were making. It had nothing to do with the pressure. He didn't have to be pressured. He's already on board. And so my response was, facing pressure. Fuck off. You know who isn't facing any pressure from Democrats who think Biden isn't doing enough this fall? Republicans. Zero pressure. They are counting on them. All the people who are saying we got to hold Biden's feet to the fire to make sure he's already doing it. He already wants to do it. He's already doing everything he can. And still, the Republicans are not afraid of a blue wave. That should tell you where the pressure campaign is failing. We need to make Democrats do certain things. No, you don't. You need to keep at it and keep voting and inflate our numbers to match the trend of people who actually believe what we believe as a party and as a group. Instead of going, I look, you guys, I'm tired of this analogy myself. I went to the gym once and it never worked. Did you go back? No. I go once every 4 years. Jesus Christ. I also, there's an article that that Connie posted and tagged me in it. And this is one that I actually mentioned a little bit ago, like I think a few morning shows ago, about how Iran and Russia, like the fact that, so Iran has sanctions on its oil industry. So it can only sell to certain people. Once Russia got sanctioned as well, it can only sell to the same people Iran is selling to. So they are now competing to sell their oil to a limited market of criminal assholes in desperate third world countries. And that's causing them to lower their prices to compete with one another. There is a race to the bottom in the price of oil on the black market. And like, why is this, like, have you, obviously this is on Marketplace, and you'll see shit about this on Bloomberg, for example. Have you seen this worked into the conversation on CNBC or MSNBC when they talk about oil and gas and sanctions and that kind of stuff even? Or certainly not fucking Fox isn't going to bring this up. Yeah, race you to the bottom. So, I just, that to me is fucking hilarity. And I since I already responded, I just went for a regular joke this time. I try. Follow me at HAL Sparks. It's worth it. I mean, I definitely jibber jabber about politics far too much for some people. Bless you, Jeff 9Cow, for helping share the show. Jeff has been so great. Like, just remember when I had short hair? Look at that. I have to have it back like this. I'm very hot right now. It's warm in here. Sweaty. Most of this stuff has been out about, oops. Who blocked me? Who blocked? Somebody blocked me? All right, that happens. Oh, that's what it is. Maybe it's best to don't block Hal because you end up with, oh. Oh, that's from Shameless? Right. Oh, God. Rudy Giuliani told Eminem to leave this country if he wants to kneel. Eminem responds on Stephen Colbert.
Eminem.
Now I'm going to get a copyright strike over this.
His skull's not hairy, teeth fake, fricely married. The leakage on his cheekage is scary. Probably sherry, he's drunk, but on the surface he looks, well, drunk. He's not hiding it. Hope he doesn't.
Yeah, okay, so they did a gag on there. I can't even play that because even though it's a sample of a sample of a sample, I'll end up losing it. Ron Johnson is also losing. That's hilarious. Oh, and then Boris Johnson. So this was pretty hysterical. I posted this from Jonathan Pye. This, like, he basically breaks down what like goodbye Boris Johnson, like goodbye Bojo, and kind of sums up why he's awful. And I mean, nobody's surprised. He's like a Trump fan, dude, and he's he tried to hang on, but whatever. Who can, that's so sweet. Is that, yeah, Fred Gutenberg responded to my tweet. I love Fred, and I said so. We love Fred, period. I love that dude. I got to have dinner with him in LA when he was there a while back, and I have to say it was one of the most surreal Hollywood dinners of my life, because there was a pretty famous actress who had a pendulum with her and she was basically trying to communicate with Fred's daughter on the other side and ask her questions so that he could, it was frankly awful. I am not going to say who, but I was like, this is the most like stereotypical, like California bullshit I've ever been a part of. And I used to work for Marianne Williamson in the early 90s. True story. But she was using one of those things like, if it goes this way, it's yes. If it goes this way, it's no. And she's like, no. And Fred was being nice listening to her. And God bless that man for just the long suffering required just to deal with these issues. But to have this woman talk to him like that, in this setting was just, I was like, you don't bring that up to someone. If someone has the same spiritual beliefs around something, if they pray the way you do, if they worship the way you do, and you find out that whatever your in-group prayer style or your Wiccan pastime or belief system is, your, genuine belief in witchcraft or wishcraft, or your dabbly bullshit, whatever it is, if they do any of those things and they bring it up, right? And you're like, oh my God, I don't think they know. It's like me being a Mason, I don't shop it around. I let people know, but I don't push it while I'm out there. And I certainly don't go, what could solve this for you? Being a Freemason. It's just weird. Mainly because if you want to be a Mason, you have to ask. You can't, nobody will sell you Masonry. That's not how it works. It takes, desire on your part. Anyways, so if anybody doesn't share those things, especially if they've been through a life trauma, leave them the fuck alone. Don't bring up what your people or your weird little belief system is about that kind of shit with their tragedy. For real. Halsparks, you're related to Jackie Mason.
Oh, no. I'm not related to Jackie Mason. But I am related in some ways to the aardvark from Pink Panther.
Amen, Hal. Nothing makes my blood boil like people telling me why I'm going to hell. Yeah, just tell Saul he's going to hell and leave it at that. He doesn't need to know why. Does it matter? I mean, the Leviticus is so slipshod with what constitutes a hell-worthy sin. Sure, having sex with another man is an abomination according to Leviticus, and you'll go to hell for it. But so is shrimp and polycotton blends, because according to Leviticus, you can't wear two types of fabric on the same body. You gotta wear one type of fabric. If you mix and match fabrics, God forbid you have a rayon, you're gonna burn in hell for rayon. I used to have this bit a long time ago at stand-up about that concept, especially at the time when, marriage equality was, being debated a lot, and people were like, you're burn in hell for being gay. And I'm like, can you imagine? You go to hell. You're up to your ass in lava. It's hot. It's so hot. It's terrible. Oh, God. And it's awful for the first century. But humans can get used to anything. You know what I mean? You adapt eventually. Eventually it stops. It's got to at least, the hurting's got to peter down. And the eternal sufferings, they got to it's either got to get hotter or they got to change it. Lava has an even temp. So eventually you're just going to get normal to it and start chit-chatting like, hey guys, what are you in for? Gay. Really? What did that entail? Just blowing dudes, anal sex, orgies, just every day of my life. Loved it. It was great. Huh. You enjoyed it? Yeah. It was, totally who I am. It was invigorating. It was incredibly pleasurable. It was, oh my God, the fun we would have. Forget Pride Month. Halloween, Santa Monica Boulevard, the outfits, oh my God, I was a furry for 10 months. It was fantastic. Just, it was great. I was like, you know how Trump dances? I was like that, but with actual dicks. What about you? Golf pants. Yeah, that's it. I was a golfer. One weekend. I hated it. Never did it again. But poly cotton blend, fucked forever. What about you? Shrimp cocktail. Yeah. Yeah, no shellfish, so hell forever. And the weird thing, I was allergic. Never had another one. Blew up, ended up in the emergency room. You know, maybe it was like God warning me or something. I never went back. I never had another one. I learned my lesson. Fuck me. At least you got laid. I don't know. Golf pants. Sexy. What are you wearing now? Quit it. You're going to get us in more hell. Is that possible? Yeah. Can you imagine, like being in hell surrounded by murderers and child molesters and timeshare salesmen, and all you did was have a shrimp cocktail on a golf weekend with a buddy who you never fucked. You could have just done it. Shit, I should have just tried cock, I guess. I should have just tried sex with other men. I mean, I don't know if I would have liked it, but, you know, I was coming here anyways. Might as well checked it out, you know? I was always like, nah, it sounds interesting. It sounds fun. But I didn't do it because I was afraid of going to hell. Little did I know, one shrimp cocktail. Ow, shit. Is the lava rising? Yeah, it does that every 6 months. Oh, okay, good. At least I know. You don't bring up your beliefs with people who aren't already on board. The only time you bring up your religious beliefs, I believe, your spiritual beliefs too, whatever they are, is if somebody comes up to you and goes, you and literally goes, I gotta say, I've been around you for a while, and you seem like a decent person, and you're happier than I am. What's your secret? Right? Then you're like, oh, I'm a Scientology Mormon. What's that? Well, it's sort of like you're a Mormon Christian Scientologist. And it's pretty, I mean, the rules are pretty loose. You have to make your own underwear. I pray for everybody in the world to be happy 3 times a day. And I have to do our own special form of yoga, which involves, it has to involve someone you're sexually attracted to and as little clothing as possible, at least every 6 months. And yeah, and that's it. That's pretty much. Oh, you have to eat right and exercise. That's where we lose people. So, right. Also, it's 6 degrees of everybody's birthday today. It's Kevin Bacon's birthday. The dear and wonderful and funny and touching and smart and great Michael McKean wished him a happy birthday, and I said I'm going to celebrate by watching The Big Picture for the 100th time. If you don't know, The Big Picture is a Kevin Bacon film about him trying to make it in Hollywood, and Michael McKean plays his direct. Kevin Bacon's trying to be a big director, and Michael McKean is his cinematographer friend who worked on his student film and is one of his best friends. And he goes through this thing where he wants to hire him, but he can't because the studio wants somebody else who has a da-da-da. And it's one of those like ego trip movies where he gets too big for his britches and then comes crashing down and recognizes who his true friends are. It's a solid moral. I think more people should watch movies like that, myself. But Michael McKean is in that, and he's not only really funny in it, his scenes with his family and him being understanding about not getting a job because Kevin Bacon won't hire him, won't push back against the studio and bring him on board is so sweet and so touching and heartbreaking in a very simple and silly comedy. Also, Martin Short is a fucking genius in that movie. He's great and everything, but Christ almighty. Anyways, Michael McKean is in the movie with Kevin Bacon, hence why that movie in particular, as opposed to other Kevin Bacon films that I could also mention that are wonderful. Then, okay, so here's what I wanted to show you guys. I personally believe that climate change, as we know it, and the issues therein, the solution to those problems are too extraordinary for the circumstance that people are recommending. The cutting down on our use of fossil fuels in a drastic amount, in an amount necessary to protect the planet, is, and perhaps has been for the last 20 years or so, impossible as a single solution. That if you do that, more people will die in a more acute and quick fashion than the percentage rise over time and the long-term effects that, where everybody's like, it can never be reversed. Well, of course it can. Technology can do a lot of things. If we start terraforming our planet, God knows, which we will be doing, if we want to survive. That we are, I believe, in a lot of, in this situation, we are going to innovate our way out of it. That's the solution. Innovation, it's not about how little fuel we use or forcing the cutbacks, but the expansion into the use of renewables, those that work and will get better, those that are mitigatory and in between, less harmful fossil fuels over time, going from crude oil to natural gas and methane, and using that as a fuel as opposed to just escaping from the earth and whatnot, and using those things as bridges to get where we're going, along with solving for the problems we created before we knew it was a problem. Now, one of the things that when people talk about climate change in particular, and why when you talk to Republicans about it, you have to stick to pollution. They don't have the mental capacity to see past the God's in charge of the sky. You can't fuck up the sky. If the sky gets fucked up, it's because God wants us all dead because some woman ate an apple, right? That's partly where this is. They just can't. They're not going. They're unwilling or unable to grasp something that big. And it doesn't serve them to even try from a business standpoint or from a survival standpoint or from, because they feel like they're, walking a knife's edge financially or socially or whatever, and doing any of those things, they're so on their heels, it would be the push that destroyed them. That's how they view it. So you have to talk to them in terms of pollution. You just have to. Like, look, we want clean water, clean air. Okay, cool. All right. That will solve for a part of that. All right. We're trying to solve that too. Okay. We're trying to do it in a bigger sense over the long term, trending away from any pollution, even the kind you can't see. All right. Is that cool? Great. All right. We're on the same level here. We are discussing this as human beings. And the idea that you're going to cut back on the use of gas and diesel and oil as a transportation fuel world over in enough of a way to affect the 1% or 1.2 or 2% change Celsius in global temperature over time will result in the death of at least 1 billion people in the next 6 years. If you just go all in, like people are suggesting, people are asking. So the solution will be in mitigatory steps to lower that, while at the same time solving the problem other ways. And I would like to show you one of those ways that is coming up and is growing. And there's a fascinating, this kind of goes in line with the thing I showed you earlier about, jobs rise, creating inflation woes. Those kind of headlines. This is kind of hilarious. These are multiple articles I'm going to show you the titles of and some of the content of. And this is about carbon capture. So one of the big things that we could do is we know that trees, for example, take CO2 out of the air. So can you make a super tree? can you make a machine that acts like a super tree, that pulls carbon out of the air, carbon dioxide out of the air, and converts it into something else, something physical that you can inject into the earth in places where the earth doesn't give a shit because it's full of lava and cyanide and benzene and God knows what else, right? It's not going to hurt anything because everything at that level hurts. It will hurt everything if any of it comes out. So you just inject it into the earth. And carbon capture, it has come a long way. The original idea was, and this is how it's kind of amazing how fast, kind of like solar panels have improved over the last little bit, how fast the improvements are coming when it comes to carbon capture. It's about on the same pace, right? So this is from CNBC, and it's so this is June 28th. This is fairly recent. Carbon dioxide removal company Climeworks announced on Tuesday it is building a second, there's already one, I'll show you that in a minute, second commercial-sized plant in Iceland that will capture more than 36,000 metric tons per year of carbon dioxide. Company's goals are ambitious. It plans to remove millions of tons of CO2 by 2030 and 1 billion per year by 2050. Meanwhile, humans emit more than 36 billion tons of CO2 last year. We are also, the difference between that billion and this 36 billion and where they do it, and this is just their target. There are other companies doing this, that once you stack up this technology and you extrapolate it over the earth, especially around industrial areas where the most carbon is produced, so it is acute to the problem, and then you attach technology like this to carbon emitting plants, for example, you start to see where this starts to build up. Okay. These guys are so they're just so Greenland. Co-founder and co-CEO Jan Urbacher, 38, was just 25 years old when Climeworks was launching in a world where the idea of carbon removal was largely seen as a distraction. We just went on and didn't listen too much to the doubters. Now, the doubters he's talking about are not right-wingers. The doubters who were against it were not, the usual suspects, big oil or what have you. The doubters were green activists who thought if you start doing this, or you start making this technologically available, there will be less of an impetus to get us off of fossil fuels. Because if you could solve the problem of fossil fuels, as far as an environmental impact over time, then why would people stop? There's a myriad of reasons, huge geopolitical and financial ones that should, and links to, countries that fuel terrorism and funding places like Russia. There's plenty of reasons beyond that to not use them. Also, straight up pollution. Again. So anyways, what people were telling them was if you solve this problem, then people will be less likely to get away from fossil fuels. The reality is that if you get off fossil fuels too fast, you're going to kill lots of people. And they won't be in the United States and Canada, and they won't be in Western Europe. They won't even be in Eastern Europe per se. They'll be all over the western part of China. They'll be throughout the Middle East. They'll be all over Africa and Latin America. They will die because the availability of oil and gas for transport the price will go through the roof because it will be a special commodity that's either limited intentionally or simply not produced anymore because other companies will move on from that. If you yes, India is another example. You will kill 1 billion people in 6 years. They will die. They will starve to death. They already are scraping by, and the availability of what little diesel fuel and oil and gas they use, or the factories that keep their lights on, which are awful. But the line between life and death for a lot of them, that those people are going to starve to death. They're going to die. At least 1 billion of them. And in many ways, if you look at sort of the grain shortages, which are really more of a transport issue in terms of getting grain out of Ukraine to someplace else. Imagine that exacerbated worldwide, right? So we're not going to solve all these problems at once. So try to stay with me on this idea. All right. Yeah. Farming has to go, then quit eating, right? That's exactly right. 79 billion to go. What? No. So we have, and by the way, we are in no means headed towards overpopulation. Not that we ever really were. The world is sort of topping out at about 8 billion humans. It could handle 16. Genuinely. Resources are there. If you with some reasonable rules, you could absolutely care for that many human beings. Think of all the termites that exist. Believe me, they outweigh us by, in entirety. So anyways, that's another conversation. So, but I want you to look at this. This is from June, and these guys have been working on this for 13 years. This particular company, and they've done their proof of concept. It's working. It's running. And then they're already building a second one. And they're not the only ones. In Riverbank, California, they're doing the same thing. This Amadeus company has acquired a 24-acre site in Riverbank, California, where they are going to capture carbon and sequester it back into the earth. Just send it back down, pump it into the earth, leave it there to make diamonds, I suppose. After, you can farm them later. This is July 8th. This is new. This is Amadeus Incorporated, a renewable natural gas and renewable fuels company focused on below zero carbon intensity products. Again, net zero is the thing that freaks out Fox News. These guys are going below zero. They want to actually, in the process of producing energy via their natural gas plants, actually remove more from the environment as it works than they put in. Right? Okay. So today announced the purchase of 24 acres known as Parcel B on the Riverbank Industrial Complex site to develop a carbon capture and sequestration injection well. The company plans to construct a characterization well to obtain required data and final injection well design information that will be used for the EPA Class V1 CO2 injection well permit application for the sequestration of approximately 1 million metric tons per year of CO2. This is one site. Just this one site. If this had been part of the process for, I guess going back as far as the Carter administration, when we recognized the pollution was a problem and that the amount of filth pumped into the air by specifically fossil fuel energy plants, if that could have been captured, that would have lowered the amount of just environmental pollution in a lot of places. Just dealing with that. I mean, to look at Beijing today, they would have had that technology to put in place. Again, I'm just saying Carter was right. So the Riverbank Parcel B land purchase secures the key site for 1 million annual tons of planned CO2 injection to reduce the carbon intensity of Amadeus biofuels and sequester CO2 from other California industrial and agricultural sources. So they've got their natural gas plant, and they're going to take all their CO2 they produce in the process, and that of other companies, which can either sell it to them, again, like carbon credits and benefits given by California to do this. You can just get a tax break if you just do the work of whatever carbon you're producing, put it in that hole over there, where the earth will absorb it and does not give a shit because the earth is a big fan of carbon. These are just two companies, okay? Pop over here. UK's largest carbon capture project will turn 40,000 tons of CO2 into baking soda. This is one of the newer ones. This is pretty hilarious. This is now, they've moved past take the crap, pump it into the ground, get rid of it, to what can we use it for? And I'm enjoying the name of this one. Tata Chemicals Europe today opened the UK's first industrial scale carbon capture and usage plant today. And usage plant. I love Tatas in general, but it's not just for their beauty, but their usefulness. That's the thing, right? All right. So, open the UK's first industrial scale carbon capture and usage plant. That's a step forward from the guys saying even we're going to bury this stuff. Today, signaling a key milestone in a race to meet the UK and the world's net zero targets. The plant captures 40,000 metric tons of carbon dioxide each year, the equivalent of taking over 20,000 cars off the road, and 10 times more than what the GNN reported to be the world's largest carbon capture factory just 10 months ago. So this is the other one. I'll open that in a second. The $24 million investment has been completed by UK-based Tata Chemicals Europe and one of Europe's leading producers of sodium carbonate, salt, and baking soda, and they expect it to lower their carbon emissions by more than 10%. The project will help unlock the future of carbon capture as it demonstrates the viability of the technology to remove carbon dioxide from power plant emissions and to use it in high-end manufacturing applications. The party trick is that in a world's first, carbon dioxide captured from energy generation emissions is being purified to food and pharmaceutical grade and used as a raw material in the manufacture of sodium bicarbonate, baking soda, which will be known as EcoCarb. They've registered it. It's a new thing. This unique and innovative process is patented in the UK with further patents pending in key territories around the world. EcoCarb will be exported to over 60 countries around the world. Much of the sodium bicarbonate exported will be used in hemodialysis and to treat people living with kidney disease, which is, they need a lot of that stuff for those kind of treatments. So it will also be used in essential items like glass, washing detergents, pharmaceutical products, food, animal feed, and in water purification. All necessary items, all made with stuff that is produced by the process of innovating carbon out of the atmosphere. And I would like to remind you, the next time you get angry and you're told by the news that the world is full of evil assholes seeking to destroy it at every turn, remember, all these folks working on this stuff, everybody at these plants, everybody who started these companies, everybody who in the legal world that does their contracts to help them get applications approved, all the governmental entities, NGOs, and certainly the people, the elected representatives who helped get this shit online, woke up every morning for the last few years shepherding this shit through so it could happen. This is why I sometimes get pissed off at the world's fucked up and full of terrible people. You're just actively ignoring and dismissing people who wake up every goddamn morning trying to make this world a better place. All right, so, and this, what was the link on this one? World's biggest factory to suck carbon from the sky and store it for millions of years turns on in Iceland. This is the first one these guys did. This was on September 11th last year when this went online. This was their proof of concept. The next one will be, I think, 6 times the size. World's largest factory, built solely for the purpose of drawing carbon dioxide from the atmosphere and storing it, has just come online in Iceland. This is just last year. None of this technology, by the way, was impossible 10 years ago, but everybody was just fighting over it. And Republicans in charge would stiff-arm this shit the world over. And the conservatives in charge, I would say. Built in geothermal park in Helishedi, the company hopes this is merely a stepping stone necessary to scale up the modern factory, model by a factor of 80. That's the next one. The next one was, I think, double or 4 times. It's 40. So, thereby removing millions of tons of CO2 by the end of the decade. As a direct climate solution, there could be, as direct a climate solution as there could be, the Orca factory, just one of a number of climate change solutions offered by Icelandic firm Carbfix, takes CO2 from the air before separating the carbon from the oxygen, mixing it with water, and sending it deep underground into basalt rock formations where it mineralizes. This is also where we have basalt rock formations, basalt rock formations in the United States where we keep our strategic petroleum reserves. That's where they store it instead of big tanks. That's where those millions and millions of gallons go. They go into these big salt mines that are basically empty and it just sits there. Yeah, With 16 locations recycling CO2, Climeworks, the Swiss company which provided Orca with the CO2 intake fans, are extremely excited to have to have participated in the project that will permanently remove carbon rather than just recycling it. So they do these other places that kind of use it for other stuff. They saw that green technology can be reproduced easily to scale anywhere there is renewable energy and storage available. Orca was built adjacent to a local geothermal power plant, so it runs fully on renewable energy. So it is a climate, it is a below net zero technology. It has a zero carbon output and is 100% removal. So it's a win going forward forever. Also, attaching something like this as a fall off for energy on any plant that produces renewable energy. Having if you've got a giant solar array or a wind turbine set up or a geothermal plant or a hydroelectric system at a dam, you can put one of these things on it, take a minimal amount of energy from it because it's basically fans is how it operates, and just let it run all the time. Yes, base salt and salt are two different things. That is true. Yeah. So the company says it can pull 4,000 tons of CO2 out of the atmosphere every year. Now they do 40,000. So it was 10 times the amount that they got up. Now they want to do 80 times. The equivalent of taking an 870 cars off the road on its own. Small impact. That's the 10 to 15 million. But it stays working. It's an investment and it stays there. Okay, there we go. Now, meanwhile, there's demand destruction with electric cars happening at the same time. Now, remember what I just showed you about all these stories. Like there are multiple companies working on this. There are different technologies. There are new patents. There is there's a push towards this. And even this one, here you go. Look at the number on this and go, that seems really small. World's largest direct air carbon capture facility will reduce CO2 by 0.0001%. That's in the Earth's atmosphere. The world's largest carbon direct air capture facility has started construction in Iceland, run by Swiss startup ClimateWorks AG. When construction finishes in 18 to 24 months, their facility, named Mammoth, will be able to remove 36,000 tons of CO2 from the air per year, which is 0.001% of the 36 billion tons of CO2 emitted per year by humanity. Climate currently operates their Orca plant, which captures 4,000 tons and began operations last year. This new plant will increase their capacity by an order of magnitude. Direct air carbon capture is the concept that carbon can be sucked out of the air through industrial and chemical processes. ClimateWorks' new plant will use geothermal power to operate, sucking carbon from the air and mixing it with water, then injecting it into the ground where it reacts with basalt to form solid carbonate rock. It is favored by large polluters like Exxon as a way to reverse the enormous damage they continue to cause. See, this is Electrek, by the way. Though currently it is too expensive to be scaled in any meaningful way. This is the pushback they're talking about. Oh, look, HAL extraction. Quality plant oil extraction by HAL. I can milk an eggplant like nobody. What? Now I got to look at that later. We'll come back to it. Due to this expensive and difficult of scaling, environmentalists question its usefulness. That's the pushback that they're getting. I got news for you. It's all hands on deck. And anybody who thinks that we're just going to not move forward with eliminating the use of fossil fuels worldwide simply because we can scoop carbon out of the air without recognizing that this technology is there to undo the damage already done and push us in a better direction and eliminate what simply like tightening your belt in a first world country cannot do. How it won't be there later? You don't think so? We got to open it now? I'm scared. Clicking on open. The industry, well, you bet your ass it is. HAL extraction. Made in the USA. The industry's safest extraction spaces. Oh, it's an extraction booth. These are basically, these are like those nursing sheds that they have at the airport. Learn about how HAL's patented technology can save you money. Chat with HAL now. They already are. Been there, done that. Look at these things. Production series, extraction, hood series, classic series. That's the classic. I go with the classic. That's 215 square feet, 85 to 250 square feet. That's sweet. I need a HAL shed in my backyard. Pineapple Express. They take this stuff and squeeze your juices out and get that stuff. Look at that. Monitoring right there on the door. It's certified and up to code, safety measured, clean. And you can measuring stuff. Oh, that looks fun. It's like a giant. Think of it as a giant fleshlight for the cyberpunk era. I'm just going to say that looks painful. It's a turnkey solution. You don't even have to be there. Just put the stuff in there and let it happen. Nobody's the wiser. You can put this little booth inside another booth, and when people walk in there and see it, it doesn't look creepy at all. Established in 2016 by certified industrial hygienist CIH Lynn Havelick, HAL extraction has become the standard for safety in the plant oil extraction industry. Bless their hearts. Look at that. I'm going to, good people, all of them, and made in the United States. There's their product. The classics. Oh, look, here's what we need. We need to get one of these for Stuttering John. The degassing cabinet from Alex. It works like a charm. Let's keep in touch. Can you hear me? All right. Will it remove CO2? Only in this case. Close. The gas, CO2 is a gas, so I would say yes. Look at that little vent hood thing. Doesn't so much degas as make it somebody else's problem. But yeah, good stuff. All right. The hood series, which is about to become illegal in a lot of red states. The intro series, you don't want to dive right in. The Model 85 will be plenty for somebody just in the early days of this. It's 9'9" by 8'9" by 8'2", 10 feet by 10 feet by 8'5". That's you could fit that in any household. Go to Degassi High. All right. And you can extend the booth afterwards. If you need to expand, you can get an upper decker. That's what we like to call it at HAL Extraction. Try the new upper decker. It'll add a frame and you can no stairs. It's just where the vapor collects. There's some tall extraction thing. Sometimes when you're doing the pineapple squishers, it's got to fall from a tall height. If you have one of those organic Etsy kind of things where you make organic juice and you make it by using one of those carnival hammer bell games, you're going to need the upper decker to use that. See, I was saying, no, we had electric cars in the 70s. That was 52 years ago. How long do you need to get an electric car? I'll have you know, we had them well before that. Put a pin in that idea for those of you that think electric cars just showed up in the last few decades. This is another example of after our momentary sponsorship by HAL Solutions. There are HAL Solutions. You can Venmo me, you can PayPal, you can Cash App, and of course you can, if you would like, you can give a super chat. As Benny Loco has, and Jill Carter has, and Janelle has. Janelle, thank you so much for that. And Carrie, thank you. Jinx, too. Oh my gosh, you guys, thanks so much for the super chat. Thank you, Richard. Thanks for the subs as well. And thank you for gifting some of the subs to the trolls who might feel like they found a new home. I feel like they, sometimes they face the great void of loneliness, and it makes them bitter and angry. And I want us to be there for them, and create a safe space for them where they can be called a fucking idiot, but in a way that lets them know that it's their dumb ideas that they managed to get from someplace else that makes it dumb, not their internal existence and their genetics or their cell structure or their very being as a person. Trying to help. All right, so There's a carbon capture gold rush. Just grasp that sentence for a second. There's a carbon capture gold rush. There is an industry dedicated to, and people making money to capture carbon. But some warn better solutions exist. To stem climate change, billionaires, politicians, philanthropists say sucking carbon out of the air and storing it underground could work. Critics fiercely disagree. In White House halls, Davos conference rooms, and a billionaire's Twitter feed, one climate change solution is gaining traction. Carbon capture technology. In recent months, the Biden administration, Tesla, and SpaceX CEO Elon Musk and companies such as Alphabet and Meta have poured millions, in some cases billions, into investment funds, research proposals, grant opportunities, and competitions to develop the method. Scientists argue carbon capture, which takes carbon dioxide from the air and stores it deep underground, has the potential to quickly slow Earth's rapidly warming climate. No, they don't. That nobody is arguing that. Everybody's saying this is a process. Everybody is saying this will have to be scaled up on a massive scale, and people are trying to find out the highest refining, the highest amount of technological refinement you can do while still being effective and portable, cheap, easy to build technology that even third world countries could build themselves without it being too fucking complicated. So that it's not about that, like, oh, these are like, think of these as the new oil rigs. We'll sell these to all these countries and bullshit them into taking the carbon out. God. So the method takes multiple forms, right? One attaches industrial plants to factories reusing or transporting carbon emitted directly from smokestacks. More experimental version envisions large facilities that could capture air, remove, and envisions. They're making one right now. It's being built. They're envisioning it. They fucking made a blueprint. It's under construction. The construction's already done. They just turned it on. That could capture air, remove the carbon dioxide, and store it underground. Others propose using mine waste, algae farms, or biowaste to decrease emissions. Yes, all hands on deck, fucko. The focus comes at a crisis moment. Yes, because when you are faced with a crisis, there's one way we can keep this boat afloat, and that's we all eat Dave. Might seem like a reasonable, since the boat is already sinking, and it's going to take on more water with weight, and that you don't have the current means and wherewithal to patch the boat, but everybody else is working on it. Sometimes you just got to say, fuck it, one of you guys has to go overboard. I'm for the record against that. I'm for saving as many lives as possible as we solve this problem. Not letting our attitude towards a crisis treat a crisis like an imminent emergency. Yes, Dave would have an issue with this as well. In February, the United Nations warned climate change has reached a tipping point. They also, in their recent report, caught a lot of shit from environmental groups, the kind of which he's discussing, because they did not go so far as to say there is an absolute must to this. It scared everybody that they were backing away from the climate goals because they already saw how much demand destruction was putting us on a better track. We'll get to that at another time. Where island nations could soon be flooded, millions may have to flee their homes in the face of drought and famine. Underwater habitats would wither. Deaths related to heat, pollution, malnutrition will rise. There are 27 carbon capture projects operating worldwide and 14 in the United States. Yeah, that's right. In the world, almost half of them are in the good old US of A. That shit country that does nothing but harm the world, that's colonizing everybody and destroying everything. Can't wait to bomb the world into the... Yes, just under half of the carbon capture facilities that are being made in the United States, along with the three biggest... Hyundai's coming up close. Three biggest electric car companies. Three biggest sole electric car companies, period. According to the October report from Global CCS Institute, a think tank, Another 108 are in development worldwide in various stages of production. Again, a bunch of them here. Despite the growth in projects, fierce debate remains. Critics contend that carbon capture technology is expensive, ineffective, and difficult to scale. In that article we just read that they are citing, which is against it. Moreover, they argue money spent developing the tool distracts from funding proven solutions like renewable energy while encouraging oil and gas companies and other heavy carbon emitters to continue their operations unabated. That's the idea. That's not an option. Not doing it because you might encourage bad people to keep doing bad shit is stupid. They're going to. If you have a solution, start using it. If it ends up being outpaced by other solutions, so be it. But you don't hold back solutions simply because you think that it might absolve in its solution. It might absolve other people of their of participating in fixing the problem, especially if they're the people who are causing or profiting from the problem in the first place. They're not going to be on board. But if you can make it so that they participate in this solution while we as consumers phase them out over time, and you can solve the problem, get on it. The idea that this is going to be the fix of the global problem of massive emissions and accelerating climate change is just not borne out by reality. Nikki Reich, the director of climate programs at the Center for International Environmental Law, it's unfortunately an attractive myth by the oil industry to perpetuate the idea that we can have our cake and eat it too. No, it isn't. It is a necessary option that we face at a critical point caused by not a bunch of evil humans wanting to drive their gas-guzzling cars for years because fuck the world and the environment. And like every driver was a nihilist asshole for years. People didn't know. By the time they woke up to it, it was near crisis levels. So every solution that is viable must be used, period, end of fucking story. And you are never going to convince those folks. So why try? Carbon capture builds on natural processes such as photosynthesis, which allows trees and plants to take carbon and dioxide and turn it into a usable energy source. Again, this is like, imagine if this person said, there are all these, we're going to plant 1 trillion trees thing. And people think that planting trees is going to fucking help. It's not. We've got to stop using, right. So every time they have one of these plant 1 billion trees projects, it fucks up our whole system because it makes everybody okay with driving on gas for another couple of years. So don't plant the trees. It's stupid. Yes, do all you can now. Absolutely. In the, well said, Water Goddess. In the early 1970s, oil and gas companies began using a chemical process to separate carbon dioxide from gas pumped on site and steer it back into oil fields to get more oil from the ground. Years later, the process, getting the most out of a waste product, became a way to mitigate climate change. Companies built plants to take carbon out of concrete, cement, and steel factories to be repurposed or stored in geological formations permanently. Carl Green, yes, because most of the carbon capture from the use of fossil fuels is from carbon that exists and is being released into the atmosphere when it used to be sequestered deep underground. So part of the process is to make up for that is while we transition, while Exxon goes from being an oil company to a battery company or to a nuclear battery company over the next 30 or 50 or 100 years, whatever the fuck, in that process, undoing it exactly the way we did it is one of the few solutions we have. We took oil out of the ground and we released the carbon by burning it. Now we can take some of that carbon, put it back in the fucking ground. Oops, my bad. Carl Greenfield, an analyst at International Energy Agency, said carbon capture technology can be successful at reducing carbon emissions in tricky places, such as cement factories, triggering excitement in the industry. He added that carbon capture technology has evolved from the 70s when it was meant to enhance gas production into a stronger focus on carbon dioxide reduction. Government initiatives such as the U.S. program that provides tax credits for each metric ton of carbon a company captures have created economic incentives. Yeah, remember that? The carbon tax that you can trade your carbon tax on a market for anybody who absorbs the carbon that you're emitting, so you can get to net zero and that kind of shit. So it incentivizes renewable energy companies like the one we were talking about, where they built a renewable energy plant. That's the purpose of it. And they use part of it to take some of that carbon out of the air because the technology is right there. And they can sell carbon credits to these other companies, or I guess technically they get the money from these non-renewable sources and cement factories and stuff who have to do it to meet a certain level of output. They get to buy those or get the money for it. They get to sell their credits to those companies, and those companies pay them money, which continues to further the development of the renewable energy system that they're using, that also comes sidecarred along with a carbon capture system. The drivers we're seeing this time around is really different. Instead, we're hoping that's enough to translate this momentum into implementation. But simply diverting carbon emissions from factory smokestacks won't do the job, many experts say, especially since the system must be attached to an emission-emitting factory. That's not true. That the early ones do. Making it difficult to scale quickly, direct air capture, which uses chemical reaction to capture carbon dioxide directly from the air and reroute it underground permanently, is gaining backers because of its easy setup. Though critics say the technology is years away from implementation, it hasn't stopped funding efforts. Yeah, because the fact that shit never gets closer unless you start funding it. This is one of the dumbest fucking things. This drives me crazy. If we start this today, it's going to be years before this solution arrives. Well, then we should have started 5 fucking years ago. I'm past 11 o'clock, and I'm still ranting about this. Anyways, point I'm trying to make is that even with all this hemming and hawing and this bullshit wailing and gnashing of teeth, this technology and the people behind it are on the same side of the people some in this situation who warned. They're on the same side. They're trying to solve the problem. All hands on deck. Everything helps. If you can make one step forward, you fucking well do it. Because long term, that's the direction we're moving, and you know it. And if we can have geothermal powered factories that pull carbon out of the air 24/7 because of heat, water temperatures in the earth, or hydroelectric, where water is always flowing, driving these things, do it. Because not doing something is not an option anymore. And even tapping your brakes on this shit because you're worried that people won't take stuff seriously. There are already enough people on the planet who don't take it seriously. They exist. They're not changing. The ones of us that do are going to have to come up with mitigatory solutions for those folks while we continue to do the act of caring, while we move towards more renewable, safe, and non-toxic forms of energy. That's what everybody wants. Nobody is going like, man, I miss the old days of smoke coming out of a tailpipe. Get out of here. I mean, the fact that you can commit suicide using your car in a garage should show you that the health impact of just the vehicle, just the stuff coming out of it, is bad. Anybody can grasp that. You don't even have to understand climate change to know that. And nobody wants it. Nobody. So, anyways, sorry, DJ. Did I miss something? I was doing a show. Yes. Did I miss something? Can you imagine if Biden started this? I know many who would be on board. He already is. I got news for you. There's stuff about carbon capture loans and incentives and guarantees and stuff in the rescue package and in the infrastructure bill. They're both there. Hal, what is the Hal Sparks optimistic take on Moore v. Harper? SCOTUS seems even more dangerous than the Roe. Local governments will be able to disenfranchise people legally. That's we'll see what the final word on that one is. But let me see real quick. Let's see. Yeah, so the ability for I mean, the ability for a legislature to override the court in terms of the redrawing of legislative maps in a state. This will only impact red states that are turning purple for a short period of time, in theory. And again, every time they have tried to redistrict in a way that to like they got one black district, and then they have 3 red districts that are, safely Republican. And then they break up the black district and it had their own congressperson. And then they separate them on these other 3. What they often forget, and what they're finding out the hard way, is that yes, it's a strongly red district, or it was at that point, but it was 60-40 red. The 40% that voted against them, if they voted at all, and that's continually a problem, we can address that another time, is now going to incorporate a new group. Sorry, I was thinking of the Trump districts. A new group of disenfranchised black voters who were sequestered off into this to mute their vote, and they're aware of it. Mix those people with the Democrats in that area that were outnumbered by that time, and you push that district, which was soundly red, to a 50-50 push if everybody shows up. And that makes, because that's how they're doing it. That's the only solution they have, is to break up these solid districts and try to disperse them over these other safe districts. But those safe districts are not 80-20 Marjorie Taylor Greene districts. They are 60-40 districts in most cases. Some of them even smaller margins than that. But at least they can eliminate the one congressperson. They're trying to walk back and get rid of the one Democrat because every seat taken out matters. But over time, maybe in 2 cycles, if Democrats show up regularly, and especially the ones that sympathize with those minority voters that have been disenfranchised, which allegedly they give a shit about, they show up in those districts, it's going to tip the balance in those districts, and you will either have a Democrat in those seats, which will shock the shit out of those people and won't be a surprise to anybody else, or you will have a Republican that can't get elected if they're all MAGA, America First, racisty, build that wall assholes. They can't get elected. They'll be too extreme for the district because the balance has shifted. So again, every time they try this shit, it doesn't work the way they want. It's, quite frankly, one of the reasons why we do have the House. Yeah. Oh, because we had 11. That's why. So anyways, I'm going to sign off. And don't forget to like and subscribe. Well over time. Everybody, the show usually ends at 11. This is the straggle part. And I will see you guys this afternoon at 3 o'clock show, 3 to 5 p.m. here on Twitch and on YouTube. Like and subscribe. Send it about, blah, blah, blah. And I will talk to you guys soon. I get on these tears and everybody's like, I know. Anyways, take care of yourself and take care of somebody else. And I will see you guys later this afternoon. And remember, every single day, the majority of the people on this earth, no kidding, not a joke, the majority of the people on this earth wake up trying to make this place, the world, a better place for them and theirs and their community and their state and their country and their people. Every single day. And whinging on and giving up on on democracy on Twitter and wailing about that, when people's true rights and privileges are on the line as human beings, because it totally disregards that entirely, and it's gross, and I won't have it. And this aggression will not stand, man. I'll see you later. By the way, don't forget to subscribe on Twitch. Get us above 1,000. You can do it. You can do it.